Welcome to Stay Paid, your number one sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals, keep more clients, and build the life of freedom you're working towards. But that can only happen if you're willing to take action today. My name is Josh Dyke, Chief Marketing Officer here at Reminder Media, joined as always by Luke Akery, President of Reminder Media, and returning to the show three times.
He's getting up there next to Sean Carpenter.
Guest. Yeah, next to Sean Carpenter on the Hall of Fame return guest, Garrett Maroon. Garrett started in real estate with just 40 names in a database, and 11 years later has closed over 650 homes, 100% by relationships. He co-founded the 210 Collective at eXp Realty, as well as hosts the Faithful Agent podcast, and has a new book releasing November 25th called The Balanced Breakthrough, Winning at Work Without Losing at Life. Garrett, welcome to Stay Paid again. Welcome.
Thank you guys for having me back. It's awesome to be here. Whoever has beat me, I need to come back next week. So
yeah,
I
think it's literally you and Sean Carpenter and Steven, my brother, which obviously he's kind of co-host now, so that's not a fair assessment. But yeah, man, awesome. I mean. And shout out to you for people who don't know Garrett. I mean, he's a top producing agent. I mean, you're always closing, a massive amount of deals every year. And what's most impressive of you, I remember the first time we interviewed you, you had like 288 people in your database and it closed like 80 something deals that year. And that is a common theme I see amongst top producing agents is they have really done an incredible job at nurturing a core database of relationships that feeds the majority of their business. And I'm really interested to get into your book because you call it The Balanced Breakthrough. And this whole idea of balance, it feels like a misnomer because, I've been trying to seek balance in my life for years and I've never got it. So I'm curious of your take on this. My first really question to you is in the book, you talk about creating a scoreboard in life and business. And I'm just wondering how agents, even entrepreneurs who listen to this, can begin really redefining what winning looks like for themselves. Like, what does that scoreboard mean in your mind, and how do they start with that in mind to create balance?
Yeah. So, and thanks again, guys. Love being with y'all. But so I think it starts with the salespeople and business owners ask bad questions. And so here's what I mean, right? Recently,
I just asked you a bad question.
I didn't want to say that out loud. Thanks, we can edit that out. That's fantastic. No, let me restart. That was a great question, Luke. Let me share with you my thoughts. So I'm on a show recently. I'm on a podcast recently, and the gentleman says, "Hey, talk to the agent who, if someone came in and asked you, how do I sell 30 homes this year? What would you tell them?" And I said, I would tell them that's a terrible question because I would answer you, go work 120 hours every week, spend $100,000, borrow that from the bank, and you'll find your way to 30 transactions. That's a terrible question. But most of us get stuck there, right? And we're like, how do I sell X amount of homes? How do I make X amount of money? Again, that answer is really easy. The scoreboard comes in to say, we got to ask better questions. The balance comes in when, what do I actually care about, right? So for me, it shifted from how do I sell 50 homes a year in under 40 hours a week, which is a pretty good question, to when I created a scoreboard, which I'm looking at, it was how do I sell 50 homes a year while taking my wife on 2-day dates a month and taking every 7th week off to spend with my kids. So now that I had a better question, it forced me to go find a better answer, right? So it was, well, the only way I can figure out how to do that is to master working by referral. I can't figure any other way out. So it forced me to become an expert and solve that problem, right? So for the business owner that says, well, I got to put food on the table, what you do? So do I. My wife she homeschools. We have 5 kids, right? We have a lot of expenses. You absolutely have to provide. My challenge is not saying, well, don't work hard, don't hustle sometimes. Of course you have to. My challenge to them is you're probably not asking the best question that you could. What if you say, for example, right, in real estate, a lot of times it's how do I make 6 figures? So instead of just asking, how do I make 100K this year? What if you say, okay, but who matters in my life? So maybe you're a mom, right? There's a lot of young moms in the industry, and you say, how do I make 100K this year while still being at every family dinner and never missing my son's soccer game, whatever your scenario? If you ask that question, it'll force you to stop wasting so much time chasing all of the terrible ways to generate business, or the things that require 4 or 5 hours a day, or the ways that you generate business where you only have a 1 out of 3 shot to even convert that deal. Right? It's going to force you into a better solution. And so that's what I mean. When we start crafting the way that matters to me to keep score. Because the industry only cares about how much money you make and how many deals that you do. Most brokers are non-competing. What does that mean? The only way they make money is if you do more deals. It doesn't matter if you're like, I'm good at 20. Well, why aren't you doing 30? I hear that all the time, right? So we get to define what winning looks like, not the industry. And when we get that clear definition for us, Luke, then we start asking a better question, which leads to a better answer, which leads to a better and more balanced life.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. It's like the definition of success. What is your true definition of success? And, there's that famous book of people on their deathbed, right? And they're, the things they regret it the most.
Yeah.
And I forget what it's called.
The five.
Yeah, something. People, it's like the 5 things, whatever. It's a great book. We'll see if we can look it up for people. They should read it. But it is interesting of, when you get to the end of your life, what is going to matter. And I think you had something in your book. I think it was at the end of your book. You asked readers, what would you like the dash on your headstone to mean? What do you hope your dash, represents? And I would pose that question to you of going like, hey, your dash, Garrett, which is, the concept of Luke Aker was born in 88 and, only God knows when I'm going to pass. But the dash in between represents my life and my impact and what I did. For you, what does that dash mean to you?
Yeah. So such a good question. And I'll enter that again. I'm just going to talk about how good your questions are now so you don't feel bad. Yeah. But that is a good question. Well, so it all stems from, right. So my mom passed away in October 2022. And every year we go back and we visit, where she was buried. And you look at her headstone. Now, mom wasn't a real estate agent. She was a French teacher. But if she was a real estate agent, we live our lives as if it's going to have our real estate stat sheet on it, right? Garrett sold 1,000 homes for 100 million GCI and $5 million in profit, whatever it is. We live like that's true by our day-to-day choices. What I hope mine says is passionate follower of Jesus, loving husband, great dad, right? Amazing friend, served the people around him, whatever those scenarios are going to be, right? For me, I know what the top ones are. I don't know how the rest of my life's going to play out.
Not sold 650 homes.
Right. Exactly. Well, if I don't sell any more from today, that'd be pretty bad. But right. But the reality is
that's the point.
We live like that's what's going to matter. And it won't. Now, again, you must provide for your family. That's a given. So everything I'm talking about, that's the number one priority. You have to do it. You could do it in a better way, but stop falling prey to, you made this point, Luke. I'll give you a quick story. There's an agent in our market, I'm not going to say his name, who 2 years ago was the number one agent in our market, right? He had sold the most homes by far, had the highest GCI, all of the things. Now, it was broadly known that he had actually lost money that year, and that sadly he had gotten a divorce and wasn't talking to his son. Like, that was very public knowledge. Well, what's happening at Realtor Prom at the end of the year? Well, he's up on stage receiving the award, taking selfies with people about being the number one agent, and then he goes home to an empty house. And so most of us, if we say, well, what's success? We'd say, I sell a lot of homes and make a lot of money. Great. But then, because that's how we're wired to think. But then if we caveat and say, no, I don't think that's what it is. So you're telling me if you did that, but you went home to an empty house because you didn't talk to your son anymore, would you? Oh, no, that's not what I mean. All right, then actually go create the definition and then be in pursuit of what that is. That's the problem, is that we sit and we get stuck at, it's about making money, selling more homes. We don't bring everything else in because we assume we're already living in that direction. And when we stop and pay attention, most of the time we're not. Because how many family dinners did you miss because you had to take that emergency phone call? Being on the beach with your family, writing offers. Why are we Instagramming about that? We shouldn't be proud of that. Hey, look at me not being present with my family. We shouldn't be proud of those things, right? We need to put those to bed.
I feel attacked right now.
Dude, I'm feeling it. I mean, the Dolphins won, and I'm excited. And so this was good.
I love the point, but to be devil's advocate here, or where my mind goes, is like, I don't think most people want to have to be the hustle culture and the grind. I mean, some do, right? I've fallen prey to that a little bit, but like, they've tried the other paths to be able to spend time with their family, but it hasn't produced enough to provide. Mm-hmm. So they're torn in this, like, almost like tension of like, I really want to be here with my kids, but I have to make my phone calls, because if I don't make my phone calls, then I can't provide for my kids. And that is the great whatever you want to call that, like problem is most people would want the balance, but the balance isn't producing for them what they're choosing in the balance. Does that make sense? They're choosing the non-phone calls. What do you say to that, or what advice would you give?
Yeah. So it's the tension, right? The tension that exists 100%. And I run into that all the time. And I ran into that, right? The tension of I've got to do all of these things, right? And I've got to figure out how to sell homes and do X, Y, and Z. When I coach agents, my first question is prove to me that, they'll show me their lead gen plan. It's like 5 different things that they're doing. My first question is prove to me that all of those are necessary. They can't, right? Okay, well, tell me the data that says that you've got to do X, Y, and Z every single day all the time. You can't prove that to me, right? So we live in a false idea of what is necessary to succeed. When, you guys were kind to have me on the show years ago, and it was, well, I'm selling 50 homes a year in under 40 hours a week. Well, how did you do that? Well, people shouldn't be surprised that when you just focus on mastering something, that it leads to greater success than trying to do all the things the industry tells you to do. So I would first, if I'm sitting down with somebody, first of all, I empathize with that because I was struggling with that too, right? I empathize with that. But the reality is, if I look down, I teach in the book and I teach now what I call the rule of 8s, right? So I would sit down with them and say, okay, you've got 6 ways you're generating business. Well, let's actually look at what are the 3 best ways to generate business for you. It's almost always fear. Let's say it's fear, social media, and open house, whatever it is, right? Fantastic. Now tell me, and that's got to be data driven, or most of us don't have data. So it's just tell me, where is most of your business coming from? The majority would say my sphere. Then I'd say, okay, now re-rank them based on what you enjoy most. Oh, okay. Well, I love Sphere. I love open houses and social media. I just kind of do it because I feel like I have to do it. Okay, fantastic. And then I'll say, well, tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how excellent are you at working your database? How excellent are you in working a system and being consistent on that? They're like a 5 out of 10. Open house, I'm like a 9 out of 10. Social media, an 8 out of 10. Overwhelmingly, the least important piece of their business they're really good at, the most important piece of their business they're struggling in. And so the rule of 8s concept for me is keep doing what you're doing, open house, social media, that's fine. But stop trying to make those better. Your entire business is foundationally built on this, right? So let's say Sphere, and you're at a 5 out of 10. Until we can get that to at least an 8 out of 10 every single month, like clockwork, like it's a habit stacking, right? Then and only then do you have permission to move into open houses and try to make that better, right? That's the flaw, is we think we've got to do all these things when really success is hone in and focus on what you're doing, right? You guys sometimes send the magazine. Cool. Do you do it consistently? No. All right. Well, that's why it's not working, right? What kind of things are you doing? So it's just a misunderstanding. And the industry, the industry doesn't care if you run yourself ragged. Super quick story. I was selling 50 homes a year. It was my 2nd year in a row doing it. I hired a real estate coach. I get on the phone with her. She's a super sweet lady. And I say, here's my goal. I don't want to sell more homes. I want to do it in less time. I want to go home. And she said, okay, we're having a conversation. At the end of that call, she says, all right, Garrett, here's your homework. And granted, I've never hosted an open house in 11 years, made a cold call, anything. And she says, Garrett, your homework for the week, you need to cold call 300 people and you need to door knock 100 doors. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And she literally said, well, Garrett, you're not going to succeed in this industry. And I thought, well, I don't think that's true. And so, okay, I'm not going to do it. We get on the phone the next week. She said, Garrett, did you do your homework? I said, I told you I wasn't going to do my homework. No, of course I didn't do it. And she literally said again, Garrett, if you don't cold call 300 this week, if you don't door knock 100, you will not succeed. And I'm like, what is going on here? Where's the disconnect in this industry that says this is the only way that you can succeed? Therefore, if you're not in the office 4 hours a day cold calling, you're clearly not a very good agent. That's true for some people. Totally untrue, honestly, for the majority of people. So let's just be super intentional. Did we choose the way we were building the business, or did someone tell us how to do it and we just followed their plan? We really got to be clear on that.
Yeah, it's so good. And your nugget of mastering an actual strategy. It's like the old saying with CRMs, what's the best CRM? The one you use. Mm-hmm. Same idea, same principle. It's like, you have to actually master the strategy, and even to apply it to like the cold calling side or the lead side, because it's so powerful. It's like I have a client call here in like an hour, of an upset client that has spent, I think a couple grand with us on generating some leads through a Facebook ads program we have, and hasn't gotten anything. And they've stopped at like 9 months in, 10 months in, or something like that. And they've gotten 348 leads, $7 a lead, or like $7.29 a lead. So all the stats and metrics are good. but they've stopped because they haven't gotten anything. So I went and looked at Acre Brothers, right? Majority of our business, like you said, is Sphere, but we have another avenue, which is Facebook ads we generate to grow our Sphere. Well, we've only closed this year 11 deals from that. But you know where those 11 deals came from? 5 of them came from leads generated from paid ads 3 years ago. Wow. 3 of them generated from 2 years ago. 2 from this year, another one from a year ago. Think about that. Like it was a bunch of these deals. Oh, one of them from 5 years ago. And you go, so it is a relationship, right? It is the Sphere. But my point being is this lady's just quitting too soon. And that's the problem with the industry is they don't focus in. They don't go the actual extra mile and master it, whether it's Facebook ads, Sphere, open houses. And then they sit there and wonder, it's not working for me. And they slowly spin their way out of the business. They hop their way out of the business from one marketing strategy to the next. And I'm all about, it's like Sphere. That is number one, should be number one. You should never go to anything else until then. But the whole point is, I just don't want people to miss it. Whether you're doing farming, lead, you're giving up too soon. You're 100%. Not focused enough. You haven't actually developed the systems. The rule of 8 is genius. To at least become an 8 skilled person in that avenue. And until you do that, you're going to keep finding the same mess where you just don't know what you're doing. So I want to dive a little deeper. You have this PDA formula. Can you break down this PDA formula? It's kind of the heart of your system. Yeah, exactly.
So that is what it is, Josh. I wanted people to think about in high school when their friends were holding hands. You're like, ooh, that's gross, right? That's what this is. No. So 100% what you just said, by the way, Luke, I agree 1,000%. Really quickly, my encouragement to anybody is anytime you're trying to become an expert in something, it's like you walk into a completely pitch dark room and they close the door behind you. In the room, there's one light switch, right? There's furniture in the room. There's stuff you're going to bump into. The reality, hopefully you have a mentor in there who can verbally help guide you around and say, hey, be careful. And maybe a step, you're going to run into something. You're going to bump your way around. Right? The question is, are you going to stay in that room long enough till you find the light switch? Most of us are going to say, I can't do it. Somebody let me out. Somebody let me out. Somebody let me out until someone opens the door and now you're done, right? Just stay there long enough to find the light switch. You're going to be fine. I've never met anybody who gave themselves an infinite runway that didn't finally have their plane leave the ground. Absolutely true. So, okay, the PDA formula. So how do you build a predictable, profitable business that aligns with who you are? So we'll start with the predictability. So what I teach is what I call the lead generation recipe, right? It says, I love food, so I like to talk about food. And it's my book, so I get to write whatever I want. But the reality is, when I thought about think about grandma's secret cake recipe, right? Well, grandma couldn't go Google that. She couldn't ask ChatGPT. Those things didn't exist. And so grandma had to say, well, I want to make a cake recipe. Maybe these are the ingredients. I don't know how to make cakes, but flour and eggs and chocolate and whatever. She took those ingredients, she mixed them together, she baked it in the oven for 30 minutes at 350, whatever. And when it came out, she tasted that cake and she said, is this exactly what I wanted? Probably not. So maybe I should taste it and tweak the recipe. I'll try again, right? Maybe instead of 5 eggs, I'll put in 4 eggs, whatever. I don't know what that would do. But maybe instead of 5 eggs, I put in 4 eggs. I'm going to bake it again. I'm going to put those ingredients, bake it, and I'm going to taste it. I'm just going to taste and tweak until I get the exact right recipe. Lead generation strategy should be the same thing. We overcomplicate, right? A good lead generation, let's say you're social media, and I'm not a great social media guy, but let's say you want to build on social media. A really easy, good social media lead generation recipe is, okay, I'm going to post one personal post and one business post a day for 30 days. There's my ingredient list. The 30 days is how long it's going to bake. At the end of that, what came out, right, was that social media cake good? Did it produce business or did it not? And if it didn't, do I need to tweak it? Maybe next time I do one personal post and 2 business posts and I see how that does. If we just do that, it took me 3 years to master my lead generation recipe, but it's worth it. And so the problem is, to your point, Luke, earlier, we say, well, that didn't work, so I must not be any good at social media. I don't know that's true. Maybe you just weren't good at your recipe. The worst part is, Luke, is how many agents say, well, I did it and it didn't work. And then I ask them and I'm like, well, you only put one of the 2 ingredients in. If grandma put in flour and chocolate but no eggs, of course it would taste terrible. But you just assume, well, I didn't do the work, but clearly it doesn't work for me. Did it not work or did you not do the work, right? That's the right question. So when you build out a lead generation recipe, it should be that simple. Taste and tweak along the way. You'll find your own secret recipe. the profitability part is literally this idea of we fall prey to I spend $1 and I make $5. So like, that was amazing. I'm just going to keep doing that in perpetuity, right? As opposed to how do we hold every single dollar accountable, right? And they're going to have to buy the book, honestly, to really understand how it's built out. But when I started my business, as an example, I was spending $2,500 per client event on average. And it was great. It was so $10,000 for the year because we do 4 events. It was generating 50 closed deals. Awesome. I started to ask myself the question, I wonder what would happen if I spent less. Like, what if could I get, instead of, put $1 in and get $30 out, which is what we were doing, I wonder if I can put $1 in and get $50 out, right? So we dropped our cost on the party from $2,500 to $800. Guess what happened? 50 sales. Nothing changed, right? My own database brought in 50. What we saw was we could get to $1 to produce $90 return on every dollar we spend in lead generation, right? The challenge for most agents, especially in the market we're in now, which is hard, is we just spend. We don't hold our money accountable and say, could I actually produce more if I'm better at this, right? So again, there's some tactical stuff in there. Maybe we have time to go into, maybe not. But ultimately, the biggest piece of this is what is in alignment with you, right? So Albert Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. In our industry, we have a lot of fish, right? We have a lot of fish that would be really good at swimming. And the industry says, no, hold on, you gotta go climb this tree, right? I need you on the phones every single day. I need you on social media every single day. And they're like, man, that's not who I am, but I guess that's how this is supposed to be built. Here's my challenge to anybody. Your job is not to be who the industry says you should be. Your job is to figure out who you are already and then go be excellent at that. That's really what your job is, right? So when I did all the classes on the cold calls and all the things, when I realized, and I was only 27, I didn't know anything, but I knew enough to say, man, I'm a relational guy, so I got to build a business off of who I naturally am. That makes more sense. I can show up and do that. It's not going to burn me out, right? And so we've got to show up in the most authentic way possible. So when we combine those things, right? When we talk about balance, to your point earlier, Luke, is how do we achieve balance? And it's not perfect ever, but how do we achieve balance? How do we achieve this new scoreboard? Well, it's by building a business that is more predictable, more profitable, and in alignment with who you are. Because even if it's hard, guess what happens? When you're operating outside of your skill set, you are worn out at the end of the day, and you show up to your family and you're like, man, I'm falling asleep. I don't have any
energy.
They
get the worst of you.
Exactly. But if you build it in alignment with who you are and what fires you up, great, right? Still going to have hard days. I mean, again, we have a lot of kids. It's still hard, but I show up with more energy, more excitement over what's going on. And I didn't spend all day running in the opposite direction. I tried to run with the wind at my back. So my hope is the PDA Formula is going to help agents kind of reset the way that they build their business and really hyper focus in on what is the avenue that's actually going to help them get to where they're trying to go. And they're going to do it in less time. And that's an amazing thing too.
Yeah.
It's such a good way to measure, you talk about kind of your authentic business model, measuring your authentic self. It's hard to sit down and go, oh, this is my authentic self, but measuring your energy at the end of the day coming up from work, man, that's such a
really good.
Good point. Yeah.
I heard at a conference, a similar takeaway of like, if you feel burnt out, it's probably because you're doing something out of alignment with your passion. Cause there's a difference between the feeling of being burnt out and the feeling of being tired. We are all tired after a great day of hard work in the yard.
After a good run.
Yeah, exactly.
Still feel great that,
And so it's like, if you feel just burnt, it's probably because there's an alignment thing. Like what I love is like, you're so good at relationships. You're so good at the referrals and sphere. And so you leaned into that and you were bold enough to say no to the coach, like the expert. Most people don't have that skill. Unfortunately, it's like most are followers, not leaders.
Right? Yeah.
And you were confident enough to go, no, I'm going to kind of do my own thing. You write about authenticity being the secret to success, playing the game that you were made for. How does someone in your mind discover their authentic self, their authentic business model? What's your thought process there? So
great question. I'll give you a story and then a tactical way. So I share this all the time, right? We live in a hyper competitive and comparison society. We know that, right? Social media, we see all the things, we do all the stuff, right? And so we look around and we say, well, they're doing this kind of business. I should probably do that too, right? What about this? What about that? And so we start to doubt that we have any value in and of ourselves, right? The way that the Lord actually specifically wired us. And so, for example, you guys will appreciate this story. So my wife's best friends growing up, the dad is 6'10". Okay. He's a huge. I'm 5'6" and 3/4. When you're 5'6", the 3/4 matters, right? I'm sitting down and I can barely touch the floor. No, that's not true. But so the reality, I don't know why I said that. Edit that out, Josh. Okay, so so here's the reality, right? Nope. So we're visiting him. Yeah, don't. So Mr. Jensen is his name. We're visiting Mr. Jensen. Mr. Jensen loves sports. He takes me into his office. He's like, look at my awesome sports memorabilia. That's not what I remember. Mr. Jensen works at a standing desk. I could walk back and forth under it without ducking. And I'm just like, how is this possible? Right? Like, amazing. Well, so, okay, here's the reality. If I wanted to go become a professional basketball player, the probability of that is really, really low. Right? If he wanted to, the probability is significantly higher. So the problem that we have is we often base decisions off of possibility, not probability, right? Is it possible I could become a professional basketball player? I mean, I guess so. Is it probable? No. So let me look around and see with who I am and how I'm created, what would be more probable for me, right? I played baseball and tennis. Now I play pickleball because it doesn't matter how tall you are, right? And so the reality is when we look around at our business, we've got to understand that what's probable for me, understanding our own design and skill set. It does me no good to look around and say, man, I wish I was tall like Mr. Jensen. Guess what? It's not going to change how tall I am. Nothing's going to change, right? So we've got to have humility enough to accept who we are. From a tactical perspective, and you mentioned this, Josh, earlier. So I do love a time audit, right? We talk about that in the book. Every 30 minutes, stop for 3 days, write down what did I do. But what I really love is what I have my clients do, which is an energy audit. So then when you're done with that, I want you to put a plus next to something that gave you energy, a minus next to something that drained your energy, and a circle if it didn't do anything, right? So for example, for me, podcasting is a huge plus. I love it. It's so much fun. It doesn't matter how tired I am. I could do it. Now, answering emails is a big old negative. I don't want to do that anyways, right? So when you start to pay attention at just what actually gives you energy, that's a huge clue right there to say, maybe you should do more of this because this is what you naturally enjoy doing. The challenge is, to your point, most of us don't know what it is. And even if we do, we waste so much energy wishing it was something else.
Yes,
it's not.
Yes.
Just go be the fish and be really good at swimming. Michael Jordan tried to go be a great baseball player. Guess what happened? He wasn't very good at it. If he stayed in his lane, which he did for many years, he became probably the greatest basketball player of all time, the biggest name in the world. Why? Because he stayed in his lane. And so the reality is any real success is going to come from knowing which lane you should be in, right? That's key number one. And then forcibly staying there long enough. It's hard because we want to be like everyone else. Stay in your lane. That's your best chance to actually succeed at a high level.
Dude, that's so good. It ties into the top 5 regrets of the dying because I just chat GPT'd it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because they talked about, I wish I wouldn't lived. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings is one of the ways. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That was 2 of the regrets of the 5. One was I wish I would have had the courage to express my feelings, which is about authenticity. The other one was I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Wow. And then I was thinking, I would chat GPT, and this as you were talking, Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. And a lot of people, interpret that rightfully so around, teaching them the ways of the Lord and all that stuff. And that's so true. But there's another principle out of that, which is, a lot of scholars will say, train up a child in their giftings, encourage them in their giftings, because like you're saying, when you know what you're good at, when you know what the Lord has gifted you in and what you naturally go to, you will have success in that versus constantly chasing that comparison. And I would just challenge people, like, that's so powerful with kids. I think of my kids, Evelyn and William. It's like, I want to invest in them and encourage them in what they're good at. So if Will is good at sports, I want to encourage that. If he's not the best in sports, I'm going to encourage him to have a fun time, but I'm not going to be some crazy person trying to get him to go down a road that is not his natural giftings. And I think of my parents, right? You talk about homeschooling your kids. My parents homeschooled all of us. There's 8 of us. So you got 3 more to go, Garrett. Get busy. Come on, man. You only have 5. But this is a guy preaching at you that only has 2 kids.
Right, exactly.
But the point being is, like, they were really good at sharing with us our actual giftings and what we were good at, and encouraging us and what we were good at, and not BSing us on things that we weren't good at.
It's good.
And that, has stuck with us. And maybe that's one of the reasons why
and when did that
all
change?
Of us are not crazy.
Right. But well, you guys are a little bit, but when did that change? Right. At what point did someone above us, our real estate father, who's our coach or whatever, said, we're not going to talk about what you're good at anymore. You just need to go be good at this. Exactly like you said. My son's not very good at piano. Now he's trying it. But what if he's just not, he's really good at building things. If I just said, no, Dylan, I just need you to be good at piano, be good at piano, be good at piano. He might become good at piano. It's possible he'd hate playing piano. So it wouldn't even matter, right? It's okay. I'm trying to figure out exactly what you said, what you're good at, and I'm going to encourage that. Why is that not what the real estate industry does too? At what point in our lives did that change? Where it's,
I think here's what my opinion is. I think it's because there's also a natural tension that human beings are naturally. I believe human beings are naturally lazy. Naturally bend towards being undisciplined, bend towards doing bad things for them. They would rather the sugar than the broccoli type idea. And this is not me preaching at anybody. It's literally myself included. I know myself, and I know I naturally choose the things that I probably shouldn't choose, the things of the flesh in essence. And so I think the natural tension is trying to discern, are you, Garrett, not willing to make the phone calls and door knock because you're lazy? Or are you not willing to make the door knocking and the phone calls because you aren't good? Like, that's not your natural gifting. And there's probably a too much just blanket lens of there's just so many lazy agents that don't work. And so the coaches are basically screaming at them, well, you got to work. And the most obvious way to show that you work is how many dials did you make? How many doors did you knock? And we need to really develop the metric for how many relationships did you build? How many cups of coffee? I remember when Tim Bush, Tim, I think a little bit, he's down there with Steven and them. His first 30 days in the business, his main metric was, hey man, you're involved in your church. You just moved to the area. How many cups of coffee can you have with people? Like how many? And he challenged to have 1 cup of coffee a day. And sometimes it was a lunch and stuff like that. But the point was, how many people can you just talk to and have, do something relationship with wise? And I mean, his first year, he closed like 60 or something like that.
That's amazing.
Wow. His first year, but it was mainly, relationship. Now, Tim also does a lot of cold calling too for Facebook leads. So, we could talk about that another time, but it's that idea of there's this laziness in the industry and everybody's trying to weave through. Are you just lazy and that's why you're not closing deals? Or are you actually not leaning into your gift? And I'm not sure how to actually discern that extremely well, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's definitely a lot of laziness. And the first thing I'd say is to every agent listening who's not lazy, half your competition didn't even show up today. So be encouraged by that, right? It's a lot easier to win, unfortunately, than it should be. The second aspect of, they're so much, even in the Christian world, right? I wouldn't call him a friend, but a guy I knew in college, right? And he really wanted to be married before he left college. And he'd sit there, he'd never go meet anybody, whatever. And he would just say, his name was Jeff, guys, God's going to bring her to me. She's going to walk through that door and she's going to say, you're supposed to be my husband. And we're just like, bro, I mean, I guess that's possible. The Lord can do anything, but that's not how this is going to work. You got to get out and do, right, you got to get out and do the work, right? The same thing in Proverbs. It says the labor, unless the Lord builds the house, the laborer labors in vain. So the Lord has to build the house, but the laborer still has to labor. It is required of you to show up and work. That is a requirement, right? And so that's a good thing for you to get out there and work hard and be disciplined and be skilled in whatever you've been gifted in. That's a good thing. So the challenge of trying to help someone who is lazy or struggling, quite honestly, in that scenario, I'll just say, do you actually, I had an agent who was on my team for a little while, right? Not going to use his name. He was on my team for a little while. And I finally let him go. And I just said, man, I can't figure out how to motivate you. No matter what I've tried, you don't show up and do the work. And so I don't know. And we tried so many things, right? It was, you're going to pay. He didn't have kids. He wasn't married. You're going to pay for your niece to go to college. And that fired him up for like 2 months, right? And then you're going to have to call her when you stop doing the work and tell her, sorry, you don't get to go to college because uncle whatever stopped doing the work. And he was like, that's terrible. I'm like, bro, you're going to run faster away from pain than you are towards pleasure. So I got to do something. Guess what? Didn't motivate him. So I finally just said, brother, I really, really love you. I don't think this is the industry for you, right? You're super, super skilled. But if you don't have the self-starterness, if that's not part of who you are, then let's go do something else. And that's okay. Even in that context, let's not work counter to who you are. Now, the way that you prove that this is for you, get out there and do the work. Even if everything you do doesn't work, but you actually did something, that's a step in the right direction. So it is hard, right? Because this industry is hard. I think it's just that much more challenging for an agent who doesn't want to do the work. When they finally do, they do work that they hate and aren't good at, right? Because if I cold called every day, I wouldn't be very good at it probably. And so I would burn out really quickly and get really to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. So there is an aspect too of saying, who am I? Work in that direction. When I sit down and have coffee with somebody, I'm fired up. Hey, how do I go do that again? If I had to pick up the phone and be like, I don't want to do that again. So my natural inclination is going to say, I'm just going to check my emails and pretend like I'm busy instead of getting on the phones, right? So there is an aspect too of that alignment that's going to help us show up and actually do the work.
Yeah, it's so
Ethan just shared as a post. What was I don't know who said the quote, but it was, I've never met someone who doesn't want.
Oh, Steve Jobs, I think.
Oh, was it Jobs? Okay.
Yeah, it was a great quote. I'll see if I can find it, but it was Steve Jobs about someone who doesn't work hard, getting them to work hard or something like that.
Yeah, never been able to get someone who doesn't want to work hard.
I've never found in my whole life that you could convince someone who doesn't want to work hard to work hard. And that was Steve Jobs. But it's kind of what you're saying is there's a lot of people in the industry that shouldn't be in the industry. And this comes full circle to what your book's all about. They have the wrong scorecard. They got into this business with a false alignment of what the business is and what their definition of success. And they're lying to themselves. Because I'm having combos like this with a couple agents even right now, where it's like, actually, you might be happier as an accountant. But you have this weird idea that you need to be your own boss and entrepreneur because it's somehow, bad that you are working for somebody else. And it's like, that's the whole culture today. It's like, if you're not the entrepreneur person, then you are less than in the business world versus it's like, that's totally false and ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, this is so good, man, of everybody wants balance, really harmony in their life. Everybody knows, hey, I got to work hard. But this whole concept of, well, what is your definition of success is just so powerful. One thing I'm using, because not that this is a spiritual podcast, but I know you're a person of faith like I am. I'm talking to an agent right now where I could not motivate them for anything, like anything. It's just like, it's same with you, man. It's like, man, you get them going for 20 days. You get them going for like a couple weeks, and then it would fall off again. And I finally looked at them because they were a person of faith too. And I told them, hey, I think it's in Colossians. I was trying to look it up. But it's like, whatever you do, do it as if you're doing it unto the Lord. Like whatever work you're doing, it's like, hey, whatever you choose to do, you need to work as if because you are. And it's like, that's deeper than any type of success you'll get from this, anything of what it will mean for you. You're doing it because it's actually what you're called. You're supposed to be excellent in what you do. And that actually helped. Like that actually. So anyways, try that if it's a person of faith.
No, you're right. Colossians 3:23. Yeah. Whatever you do, work heartily as unto the Lord, not unto man. Right. There's a bigger purpose going on here. I think, and you shared this earlier, right? You talk about the runway, the idea of agents give up too quickly. Galatians 6:9 says, and therefore let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season you will reap if you do not give up, right? That's the encouragement. The last 2 years in the market.
Don't give up, Josh.
Dude,
Don't give up. We're in the thick of it, bro. We're in the thick of it. We got things crashing down all around.
Dude, well, even in the real estate market, it's been a fist fight for the last 2 years. Like, let's just be honest.
It's been horrible,
It has been hard. So for any agent that's still here, well done, you're winning, right? And now it's let us not give up. Let us not grow weary in doing good. So show up and do the good thing. Do the right work, right? For in due season, doesn't say what season, you will reap if you do not give up. Literally the only requirement of success is the infinite runway, the unwillingness to stop, right? That Charles Kettering, an author, said, the only time you can't afford to fail is the last time you try. Great. I'm going to keep trying. It's you guys have probably seen Zoolander. This is old school. I don't even know if I can quote it.
Quoting from the Bible to Zoolander. This is amazing.
I am a Renaissance man. So anyways, so there's a part, right? There's a part where Derek, his mentor, I guess, whatever his name is like, Derek, what do you do when you fall off the horse? And Derek's like, I don't know. And he says, you get back up again. Right. But Derek says, sorry. Oh, it's Maury. Sorry, Maury. I'm not a gymnast. Right. What a great response. But it's that reality, right? Is what happens when you fall off. You just get back on. If you get back on, you'll be fine. You'll eventually learn how to ride a horse, right? You'll get where you're trying to go. So Zoolander, Galatians 6:9. I'd stick with Galatians, but Zoolander is good too.
It's good backup.
Yeah. That's right.
Garrett, this has been incredible, man.
Yeah, dude.
Super looking forward to the book coming out. Before we close out, let people know how they can contact you and how they can get a copy.
Yeah, thank you. So GarrettMaroon.com. They can go there. And then on Instagram, Garrett Maroon. They can reach out. Would love to chat with anybody.
Easy peasy.
How do they find the book?
So just go to GarrettMaroon.com. It'll show them. They'll be able to buy it.
So it's right there.
Freebies. Yeah, go ahead.
Can they get it at Amazon and stuff like that or no?
Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Walmart. Yeah, anywhere.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you for coming back on the show, and thank you all so much for listening. You can get the links that Garrett mentioned, as well as the video in the show notes over at staypaidpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode and want to show your support, head on over to youtube.com/remindermedia. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Best way to show your support is simply to share this episode with somebody that you know. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com and follow us on Instagram. We are at StayPaidPodcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Josh Dyke.
Guys, I'm Luke Akery. Garrett, appreciate your brother. So much gold, so much wisdom, and so young, guys. He's so young and has 5 kids. Crazy. I'm really excited about your book. I hope people go check it out. Fun fact, it was funny. We have a lot of stuff going on here at the company with transitions and things happening. And I was talking to my dad literally this week. And for those who don't know, my dad's a pastor or whatever, and he's preaching on that passage on Sunday, which is do not grow weary in doing good. And he quoted that same verse to me. So maybe that's, obviously my sign, right? But maybe that's somebody else's sign out there today is, hey, don't grow weary. Keep pressing through. You don't have to treat people poorly. You can just keep fighting the good fight, as they say. Here's my action item, though, for everybody, because I think it's very, very practical, is have you define what your definition of success looks like. That scoreboard that Garrett talks about, have you actually take some time and be intentional about what that looks like? Because like all of us, it's not money. It's not accolades. It's not the materialistic things. Those are good things. They provide options and they provide freedom and choice. It's ultimately about who do you want to be? What do you want that dash on your tombstone to stand for? Take some time to get intentional about that, because then that will define how you live, and it will give you confidence in the activities that you're doing and where in the path that you're choosing. Remember the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business. It's top producers take action. Take action on that today.